Cool. But we're going to talk about TN visas today. TN visas are a great visa category, but uh, that we're going to be talking about making competitive offers for TN candidates. So it's a interesting topic. It's something that a lot of people run into, and so let's kind of dive into it here. All righty. So let's talk about making competitive offers to TN candidates. So first, just in case anyone on here is not aware of what a TN visa is, TN visa is specifically for citizens of Canada or Mexico. There's generally education requirements. So these are generally people that have a bachelor's degree. There's certain categories that don't require a bachelor's degree that require experience, but for the most part, whenever you're thinking about TNs, these are people with a bachelor's degree or the equivalent. And it's for certain designated professionals that are engaged in professional level activity here in the United States. And it requires an employer to sponsor the person. So the person can't self-sponsor into having a TN. TNs don't have to work full time. I've never really had a TN person come over and work part time, but it is possible. And then TN visas are generally good for it. It historically has been 3 years. They've been doing this reciprocity thing that can get you up to 4. But then you have an option to continue to renew in 3-year increments. So that's kind of the TN in a nutshell. So just some of the occupations that we see a lot and that are really common for TNs are accountants, engineers, landscape architects, social workers, dietitians, nutritionists, physicians, registered nurse, veterinarians. There's some scientific occupations such as an agriculturalist, dairy scientist, plant breeder, soil scientist. Then there's some teaching occupations there as well. You can get, if you're looking for just a list of the occupations, because sometimes this is how people do it. Like they know they have a job, they know that this is professional level activity, and they want to make sure that it qualifies under the TN category. You can also go on our website. We have a list of them on our website. But if you don't want to go on our website too, you can go on the Department of Labor's website as well, and it's on there. Or I guess it'd probably be on the USCIS's. But so the timeline. This is one part where their TNs have become much more difficult. And this is also an important part about making competitive offers for TN candidates. So historically, I mean, earlier this year, we were able to process TN people in less than a month. It was really, really quick earlier this year. And then what happened was the consulate ended up closing a lot of the appointment options in 7 different consulates. And in doing so, they only left 3 consulates reviewing these applications. So as you might imagine, those became much more competitive to get those spots. And what's happened is progressively the application or the availability date for appointments has gotten longer and longer. Right now, we're in the middle of February for appointment availability, at least last time I checked a few days ago. And so it's getting tougher. So one thing to know whenever you're making an offer to a TN candidate, don't just make the offer and walk away. Your attorney might be in the background doing all the immigration work, you're scheduling the appointments and all of that. But it's a good idea to have regular follow-ups with your potential new hires, because what I think is going to happen more and more is people are going to accept offers. And then because it's taking so long to get their visas, they're going to find other employment opportunities or think the employer is not interested anymore. And so it's a good idea, every week or two, just check in, say, hey, we're thinking about you. We can't wait for you to get here to work. We're keeping a close eye out on the appointment availability. So if we can get you here any sooner, we will. It's a good thing to do, though, just to make sure those people know you haven't forgot about them. You're still interested in hiring them, and that way they don't start looking around. This has been a pretty effective way for us to try to prevent loss from those candidates. But in terms of the timeline, the stuff that we have to do at the foreign embassy at the embassy in Mexico. Now, I guess that's one more thing just to address real quick. TN appointments are, or TNs are for Canadian and Mexican citizens. If you're a Canadian citizen seeking a TN, the way you do it is at a port of entry. If you're a Mexican citizen seeking a TN, you actually go to a consulate interview. And so there's a whole process here. So you got to complete a DS-160, you have to get a specific photo. You have to schedule the interview, and then you have to go to wherever the interview is. You have to know your documents. Make sure that your people know their documents. This is important whenever they're presenting it to the consulate officer, because you want to make sure that they know exactly what they're doing. So whenever you are making an offer to a candidate and you're interviewing a candidate, you want to make sure that they know exactly what they're doing. That there's, and this is important from an ability to actually have the TN approved position, but it's also important for employee retention, because what you don't want to happen is the employee has one idea of what is going to be happening whenever the employee gets there, and then it's something completely different. And so the employee's not happy with it, so they just want to leave. They want to go back home. You don't want that. So one of the best things you can do in making a competitive offer to the people, and also to make sure that your retention rate of these individuals is good, is be very, very candid with what they're going to be doing. It's extremely important. But then anyway, sorry, last part of the process, they'll attend the interview, visas approved, takes them about a week to get their visas. Okay. So let's talk about some of the importance of a competitive offer. So TN candidates are all they're educated and well experienced in their respective fields. Now there's no prevailing wage filing requirement, but you do want to make offers that are consistent with what you would pay a U.S. worker to perform that same job function. So it's that's an important thing. And then it's also nice. There's ways that you can make your offer more competitive to people, such as you offer to pay for their transportation to the consulate, for their DS-160 fees, for their inbound transportation. Because one thing that people run into sometimes is the people that they are trying to hire don't have the money to get through the process. And so it's not they don't want to come work for you, it's that they don't have the option to. And I've actually seen this work where there's a TN candidate has offers from two separate employers. One employer is willing to pay those costs, but pays the worker less, the TN candidate less. One is not willing to cover those costs, but pays the TN candidate more. And what I've seen pretty often is they'll end up going with the employer that is paying them less. And that's just because it's not that they don't want to go there and take the higher paying job, it's they can't afford it. And so they can't. And so they'll take the other one because the employer is willing to front those costs. So that's an important thing to consider. Okay, so what are some things that are included in a competitive offer? The job title, again, make sure that they understand what their role is, make sure it's an accurate job title, and that you're taking a look at what the actual market rate is for that person and paying them that rate, because they can do that kind of research too. They're very smart people. They're capable of doing that research, and they know their worth. So pay them their worth. And now, one thing that we do see, and this is requested from our compliance and recruitment company, AW Labor, all the time, is I want to recruit someone that speaks English. Well, the Mexican candidates who are fluent in English have a huge advantage because they're sought after. They're sought after for a number of reasons. One, a lot of times employers really want at least one English speaking person so that they can communicate with other TNs that they might have, or their workforce. Let's say I own a construction company and I want to bring over a civil engineer to manage the construction of my work and make sure that it's going consistent with the actual drawings. But it's a huge advantage that these people can not only speak English, they can talk to me, they can talk to my customers, they can talk to the certified engineers who did the drawings if there's any kind of concerns that they have. They can also talk to the crew to make sure that the crews, the laborers, are performing the work consistent with what the engineers have asked. And so they tend to be much more sought after, and as a rule of thumb, make significantly more. So that's something to be conscientious of whenever you're seeking English speakers. Is they're going to cost more. Make sure they know that the location where they're going. Make sure they know how much they're making, and then you're going to have. Sorry. Yeah, so just remember that all of these people are in fact educated. These people, they're able to do basic research. They can actually, it's actually it's cool because you reach out to them and you say, hey, this is what we're going to pay you. And they don't take it at face value. They will look to what the cost of living is in your area. They'll compare it with what the cost of living is in other areas. So these are things that they pay attention to. So a lot of times it's good to be upfront about those things. This is what our anticipated, this is what we anticipate you paying in rent. This is what we anticipate you paying in your electric bills, if anything, unless the employer is providing it. So it's good to be upfront about those things so they don't have to do the research, because they generally do the research, and just to see how much money they're going to be making, obviously. Okay. A few more things. Just like you would when you're recruiting U.S. workers, make sure to give them the total compensation package, because they do ask about this a lot. The healthcare system in Mexico, for example, is a lot different than the healthcare system in the United States. The healthcare system in Canada is a lot different than the healthcare system in the United States. And so these are things that you need to know. Make sure to include what your PTO policy is, and then make sure to include what your housing policy is. Now, if you're making an offer to TN candidates without any sort of housing assistance, you're likely to be unsuccessful. So have some sort of housing arranged, even if it's just for a short duration, so that the people can come here, they can get settled, they know where they're coming whenever they get here, and then they can move out. It's fine, or they can take over the rent, whatever it is. But it is important, because one thing I've seen people try to recruit TN candidates with really high wages, but the TN candidate didn't want to make that viewed it more as a risk to go for the higher wages when they didn't know where they were going, because they didn't know how to anticipate the cost of housing, than if there was housing provided, or if there was a set lease in place where the employer said, okay, this is where you're going, this is what your rent's going to be. That way they can actually figure out how much money they're making. Anyways, so make sure to check your health insurance. Generally, almost always, actually, maybe even always, health insurance companies require that you offer the same benefits as you do to your U.S. workforce. I think actually always they do. But it's good to check with your healthcare provider and your other benefits provider to make sure that's the case, and then convey that to the beneficiaries of the visa, because that's something that they will also take into account, something they actually care about. And so make sure to do that, because you don't want to shortchange yourself either. If you have let's say you've got a great PTO policy, a great health insurance policy, you offer housing in an attractive way for TN candidates. Well, that doesn't do you a whole heck of a lot of good unless you communicate that to the applicant. So be clear about it. Make sure the applicant knows exactly what they're getting into. And then, so these were some of the other expenses that I mentioned: MRV, visa fees, reciprocity fees, relocation expenses, travel to work location expenses. Those things have all made a big difference in terms of your ability to get people. So now, from our perspective, some ways that we can help you. I love the graphic on this picture because it's so non-applicable to TNs. I don't know if there's ever been a situation where an employer gently rested their hand on the hand of a TN candidate, especially in front of their HR department. But anyways, the timeliness is one of our core values. It's something that's really important to us. And so that we don't do the thing that a lot of law firms do, which is you send your TN candidate, or you need help recruiting a TN candidate, we can help you with that too. But you send your TN candidate to us and we say, all right, we'll get this done in the next 8 weeks. It's not like that. We are pushing through our applications. We're scheduling the soonest possible embassy appointments because it matters to you. We also obviously understand the complexity of the program. This is a visa that we do all the time. And we have proven methods of getting our clients the people that they're after. A lot of times it takes convincing, that there's just occupations the embassy hadn't seen before, and so you have to be able to explain to the embassy why this is professional level activity and supporting evidence to demonstrate that. And so that's something that we're well versed in. And another nice thing is we don't only know TNs, and so TN's a great visa. It's actually probably my favorite visa because it's not capped. There's no seasonality component. There's a temporary component to it, but not a seasonality component. You can continue to renew the visas perpetually. It's logistically not that tough because we're not filing with the Department of Labor or the Department of Homeland Security until you're renewing the visa. So it's a great one. But if it's not the best visa for you, we can also help you steer you in the right direction. And then we also try to help you with every step of the way, every part of the process. We try to make it easy on you. And then if you're looking for more information on us, you can find it there. Just on our website, pharmalawpc.com, or you can email us at intake@pharmalawpc.com, and I'd be happy to talk with you. All right, so we do have a question here. Again, if you have any questions, TN related or not, offer related or not, doesn't matter. Put it in the Q&A, and I'll be happy to answer it. If you don't end up with any questions, that's totally okay too. But here's one. Is it important that TN candidates' education and courses taken in college match up exactly with the position and the job duties? No, I mean, you're not going to ever have or you'll rarely have a situation where it matches perfectly. Now, it helps your case if they're applicable. So let's say, for example, I'm a livestock farmer and I'm looking for an animal breeder, which is one of the categories. And I recruit someone that has a biology degree, but they don't have any applicable coursework. Well, the consulate might look at that and they might say, and they probably won't, but they might say, you don't have any applicable coursework. How does your degree actually apply to this? And so that's a good way to argue that your degree applies to this professional level activity. It's based off the coursework, but it won't ever match it perfectly. And so that's part of the importance of having someone that knows what they're doing. This is a great question. Why did so many consulates cease offering visa appointments? I don't know. And they didn't give us any justification. All they said was, hey, these 3 embassies are the only ones offering visa appointments at this point. And we've also asked them if there's any indication of when they're going to open up more visa appointments. And they said, at this point, we have no information on that. Well, if you do have any questions that come up, you can always feel free to email me too. I'm always happy just to be a resource. I'm always happy to just help people. So feel free to reach out. Any questions that you have, I'll be more than happy to answer them. And I appreciate everyone participating today. And we'll talk to everyone later. Thank you.